Previously on Jay's Feet. Previously on Jay's Feet.
Wow. So perseverance seems to be the bedrock of your story.
Yeah.
And through your perseverance and your discipline and seeing it through, it just garnered attention, eyes, and support.
Yeah.
Wow.
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one. Like you said, north, south, east, west, volunteers. But I do want to talk about something that you said, food insecurity. What is food insecurity? Why should it be important to all of us? And you kind of talked about this a little bit, but how has UCAN helped to reduce food insecurity within their local community? So
when we do the monthly food distribution, I collect the data, and we average 400 individuals, okay? Because we add up the number in the family per month.
400 individuals?
Yes.
So you serve 400 individuals?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Because if you came up and I asked you how many is in your household, that will determine how many boxes you get. And when I get home, I sit down at my computer and I add the numbers up. And that's where I get the total. There are so many food deserts in Durham. Prior to us coming here, we did food distribution at another location. And at that location, we were not given the credit for the distribution. So we decided that we would move it here on site. And believe it or not, the people come. Okay. Even though it was at a prior one. Um, it's amazing how many hungry people are out there.
Let me go a little bit further and answer your question in terms of what is food insecurity. Food insecurity is not necessarily not having access to food, but it's not having access to healthy, nutritious food that builds the body and not destroys the body. I mean, in many corners, every corner you can find I'm from the country, Eastern North Carolina, so I call everything a 7-Eleven. You know, one of those convenience stores. You can go in there and you can buy processed foods. You can go to McDonald's and buy processed food. That's not healthy. That does not build the body. That does not prevent health issues that are preventable. It does not help you to heal health issues that you have. That is food insecurity. Food insecurity is not having a supermarket on your corner that sells nutritious food. It's not having one, not necessarily in your corner, but in your community. That's food insecurity. How do we combat it? We combat food insecurity with at least once a month by giving people North Carolina grown fresh fruits and vegetables. All of it comes from the state of North Carolina. The majority of it comes from small farmers. Do you understand? So you're building the economics of that small farmer who is trying to struggle and trying to make it. And you're helping him or her as well. But then you're taking that vegetables and what they grow in a healthy manner. Because when you go with a small farmer, you know what in North Carolina, you know what they're putting on those seeds. You know what they're putting on those vegetables. You know that they're not coming to you all covered with wax and everything that make them. You know they're not doing all that. You know what a fresh apple tastes like. You know that that celery that when you put in that refrigerator, It's going to last you for a couple of weeks. You think I'm lying? It really is. It's going to be there and it's going to be good. It's not going to be like it was when it came out that store. That's how we combat food insecurity, by giving people access to healthy, locally grown food that you know is grown in a healthy way, that is not grown with a lot of pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers that don't give back. You know, when we give eggs, you can look at that egg. Take that egg that we give you and go to the grocery store and look and buy an egg. I dare you, crack them side by side and tell me which one's yolk look yellow, huh? And then fry it. You can scramble it. You can do it whole. I don't care. But then, or you can even boil it. I love it that way as well. Then taste them. You will never go back if you can help it, you know. And then the other part about food insecurity is we need to get people out of those cans. I have nothing against canned vegetables. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't, because they helped me through the years because they're the food that I have. But there's nothing like learning to can your own food. People think there's a science, that it's rocket science. It's easy. It's easy. So we teach people that too. How to can and preserve, and I use the word can because I'm from the country, you know, preserve. But how do you do that? I want to show you how to do it. Well, I'm a diabetic. I'm going to show you how to do it for diabetics. It's not all that. It's not rocket science. And people are really saying, oh, is that it? Oh, God, that jam tastes better than any that I ever bought to. I know it does. And guess who did it? You did it. You know what I mean? So when you get up in the morning, you open that jar of jam or jelly and you put it on your toast, you can sit there and cross your leg with a sense of pride and say, you know what? I did this.
Yep.
You know? And you can say, I can go to the store now and I know how to go and buy a small pack of blueberries, a small pack of strawberries. And I can take that one pack and I can make 6 half pints, 6 ounces or 8 ounces or whatever they are of jam. We can do that tonight, kids. You know?
I want to add something also to that. That agronomics piece, right? When we're talking about food insecurity, food security, food insecurity, right? There's a dependence, right? When you are not growing your food, right? So we're not just trying to, give people access, right? We also want to encourage them, right? As you said, you can do this too. You can, right? And then you have an interdependence, right? And then you're able to save that money. So there's a cost savings, right, to gardening, to agriculture, right? And also just lowering your stress, right? Because when you're outside and you're getting, many people are vitamin D deficient. They're not outside, right? Well, gardening takes you that, right? To be able to put your hands back in that soil, to understand, a lot of those gardens, right, get good rain, right? So you have so much more that you have access to if somebody would take the time and show you, and that's what You Can, right, does.
I also want to add like an act of resistance and resiliency that we do with the youth is teaching them how to plant their own fruits and vegetables. It's really an honor to watch 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds come out and learn about how to do it and the excitement that they have. And not only that, but they come out with their parents, their grandparents, friends, and that creates a sense of community. And as people of color, it's important that we get back to community, to serving one another, because we can't always expect the outside people to come in and help us and, like you said, be dependent on them. Why not be dependent on one another? Why not lean on each other and bring back that sense of love and community? And also, when you start it young in the children, they'll begin to develop those skills. So as they get older, they continue to pass those skills down to their children and their children. And now we done created a successful generation that knows how to support and be dependent upon themselves and one another, and not have to depend on someone else who may be secretly against them or don't want them to have the proper access to food of nutritious value.
So if someone, I can talk to you. So if someone was interested, or if someone was interested in growing their own garden, what tips or insights would you share on how to go about that, especially if they have limited green space? Like, how would you go about that?
Yeah, so you can get like a bucket. You can put your dirt inside the bucket if you have a balcony outside.
Introducing urban community agronomics. Growing communities, one seed at a time.
My mom would make choir robes for, some of the members that couldn't afford to buy choir robes, or she would serve in Boy Scouts. My dad, through being a veteran and his service and the way that he would go over and help elderly people with air conditioning and their heat, it just would all these things that they would do. And when you're younger and you're watching it, you don't really know that sometimes that's what they're doing. You're not sure if it's a job or they felt like they had to do it. But then as I got older and I paid attention, I saw that my parents, they were just truly servants, and they worked full-time jobs and still, had the family responsibilities, but they did it so effortlessly that once I got older and then I started doing it myself, and when I say older, I was in middle school when I really started, but watching them, I feel like it's in my DNA. So I feel like it's just part of who I am.
Hello everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who are subscribed to Jay Speaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all conversation topics that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy, I'm so proud to be here with Rada Mills, serial social entrepreneur, mentor, and role model to many. Amongst her myriad entrepreneurial endeavors, Rada is the founder and CEO of Burt Brewington Creative Agency, a creative boutique styling agency that specializes in public relations, marketing, branding, communications, product placement, business consulting, ideation consulting, social media marketing and management, and influencer marketing and management. One of Rada's greatest strengths is her ability to navigate complex communication challenges with ease. She has a knack for crafting compelling narratives that resonate with diverse audiences, whether it be through a press release, crisis management, or social media campaigns. Beyond her technical skills, Rada embodies the qualities of a true mentor. She is very giving of her time and offers thoughtful feedback and guidance that serves to be invaluable to the growth of her many mentees. Not only is she a leader, but she's also a role model as well, constantly displaying integrity, professionalism, and passion towards her field. She has continuously showed through her actions, energies, and talents her passion for helping others, especially those in marginalized communities when it comes to growing, building, and nurturing their businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you'll understand for yourself why you can find Rada Mills where awesome and authenticity Neat. So Rada Mills, it's truly a pleasure to be with you once again. I believe, not I believe, but we definitely met for the first time last Friday. But I'm happy for this interview. I'm happy to be able to, learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about your impact, your brand. So, but before we officially get started, please, take this opportunity to share a little bit about yourself to me and the camera.
Yeah, that's like so tricky to me because, I know that we're layers and so many things, but I think in my most simplest form, I'm a servant. I feel like I would just say that if I had to pick a word, I'm a servant, and I truly believe in helping people. It's awkward, I think, sometimes to like put that much attention on me and who I am, so I'll let the questions do that. But yeah, I'm a servant. A daughter, a sister, a mother, cousin, like I'm all those titles, and those, I think that matters to me more than probably some of the other titles. So I'll just lead with that. I'm just a girl learning to be the light.
So where did your passion for servitude come from?
Oh,
Or what sparked that?
my parents. Like I grew up seeing both of my parents actively engaging in service. So it wasn't something that I had to go out into the world and see someone else do it, or even like on television where you see people doing these things through movies or whatever. Like my parents, I saw them not just one time. I didn't see them only doing it like around the holidays or when it's like socially acceptable to like be out in the community serving. This was every day. This was without cause or prompt. And I mean, not just one act, it's like was a multitude of things that they did, whether it was writing checks for financial support or like my mom would make choir robes for, some of the members that couldn't afford to buy choir robes, or she would serve in Boy Scouts. My dad, through being a veteran and his service in the way that like he would go over and help like elderly people with air conditioning and their heat, like it just would like all these things that they would do. And when you're younger and you're watching it, you don't really know that sometimes that's what they're doing. You're not sure if it's like a job or they felt like they had to do it. But then as I got older and I paid attention, I saw that my parents, they were just truly servants, and they worked full-time jobs and still had the family responsibilities, but they did it so effortlessly that once I got older and then I started doing it myself, and when I say older, I mean I was like in middle school when I really started, but watching them, I feel like it's in my DNA. So like I feel like it's just part of who I am.
So do you feel as though it's effortless to you?
I do. I mean, it's not I think honestly, sometimes when you think about helping other people, I think a lot of people feel like because they're going through something, they can't always help somebody else because, they're either in survival mode or they feel like, well, I've got to take care of my family, so I don't have the means or the ability to help somebody else out right now. When honestly, that's the best time to help, because when you are going through something, and it doesn't have to be anything major or bad, but when you're going through something, there is a vulnerability that we have as humans, and it allows us to be, I think, more open, more transparent, and more authentic in why we're in that space versus nowadays people show up to like serve food at a soup kitchen or a food bank, and they're taking pictures. They're doing it for social media, for the likes, for the shares, and not really for what service is meant to be, which is to give of your time and your heart in a space and place that is not bound by societal norms and accolades. You do it because you know that there's another person who needs help. So you do what you can with what you have where you're at. So for me, it's effortless because it's like I've seen it firsthand how that impact plays into another person, but not that you're saving somebody else or just helping somebody. It actually is good for you too. So it feeds the soul. and it also humbles you. It at any given moment, you could end up being on the other side.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, I do it because it's a gentle reminder that, again, for all the work that I've done and awards and ribbons and certificates, like none of that matters if you're not a good person. Like none of that matters if you don't help a person that you see in need, especially when you can. So
I truly agree with that sentiment. But my question to you is, why do you believe that the majority of people struggle with servitude? Like the majority of people, let's be honest, the majority of people are selfish. They think about themselves, their own pockets, their own lives. But the benefits that you talk about, I feel as though the benefits, anyone would love to and have those types of benefits of, humble, having a positive impact on society. But so why do you believe that people struggle with servitude?
like to generally put it in an answer that I think works for the amount of time we have, because I think, you can kind of dig into that. That's like layered. But honestly, I think that a shift happened a little bit, I think, once social media came into play. Once social media became the way that people would get their news and the way that people share what they're doing, and because we're so programmed now for likes and shares and saves, and do you know what I mean? Like we're conditioned that something doesn't matter if other people don't acknowledge it. And servitude, or being of service or helping people, is not about the acknowledgement of others. It's actually the opposite of that. So I think it takes a person who's, I think, a little more in tune with, we all got stuff going on. Like, I mean, if we just all sat down and poured our souls out to each other, like what we've got going on, we're all technically going through something. And even if things are good, you still have bills to pay every month. And I don't know anybody, especially, I mean, adulting is hard. I don't really know anyone that gets to a point where they're super excited about paying bills. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, yay, I get to pay bills today. Like, you do it because it's part of being an adult. It comes with the life. So you have to choose, I think, when we're serving people, it's a choice. Like, you literally have to choose to do that. And you have to get outside of yourself. And again, the reason why it's hard for people is because a lot of people are in survival mode. A lot of people, I think, are, trying to get from day to day. And then when we add on top of social media this part about wellness, right? And mental health and taking care of yourself. And a lot of people have confused self-care with selfishness. So self-care is when you take care of yourself so that you can be, again, of service to others, and you can take care of your family, giving yourself the space you need, right? But then you can go too far in that and become so selfish that you don't realize that other people are also in need, because you're only focusing on yourself. And I think it gets diluted too now, because people are so busy trying to be something on social media that they feel fake. There's imposter syndrome now. A lot of people have imposter syndrome and they struggle with that. So the thought of going to help somebody when you already feel like you're at lack, or like you said, you're focusing on your mental health or the boundaries or say no, that all of those things are actually meant to keep you closed off. Because when we, again, help other people, it helps our community. It's like small business. When they say, support small businesses, when you serve in your community, that in essence is a way to keep your community thriving. Because then you're about your neighbor, and you know what's going on because you're actually actively participating in that community. And that's how we really start to branch out, because then you can help someone find jobs, you can support each other. It's just so much that comes with, I think, that. And so I think for a lot of people, they pull back because they're like, I don't have anything I can give, or I've got to take care of myself, not realizing in that selfishness, you actually are, that's the word I'm looking for, kind of cutting off your ability to help the community and help people. I hope that answers it. I don't know that
No,
really answers it.
absolutely, it does. Now, is it safe to say that servitude was one of the main reasons as to why you ventured into entrepreneurship?
That's a good question.
Or are there more layers to that?
So there's that. Actually, I would say that, you actually brought about a point I don't know that I ever thought about. So I'd have to say yes. Part of it too is because I'm a disruptor. I don't follow rules. I mean, I follow the rules you're supposed to follow. You know what I mean? Like, I obviously wouldn't walk into like, you know, a line and cut in front of people that have been standing there for hours and think that, you know, it's okay to do that. But I don't really follow rules when it leaves a group of people out, right? Like if rules keep hierarchy in place, I'm going to disrupt that because I'm going to be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, so how come they can't come over here and play? Or how come they can't go do this? So you'd have to, like, it's got to make sense. But I would say, so being that I don't follow rules very well, also I'm not a morning person. I like quiet time in the morning, but I don't do well from like 8 till 10 in the morning. So a regular job wasn't going to work. And then I think as I started to really truly tap into like my creativity, that was like another kind of like, you go, so would you be good in corporate America? I've done it, and yes, I've worked corporate America as a recruiter for many years, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, it was like, entrepreneurship is probably the way you're gonna go. I just didn't know what I would be doing. Like, I kind of knew I would go into entrepreneurship, but I had no idea when that was gonna happen or what I would be doing. So I did follow into that, you know, come out of school and you go into corporate America. So I did that. What really led me to entrepreneurship was, at the time, my youngest daughter was 5 months old. She would scratch herself until she bled. And we'd have to put the little mittens on her hands. And we took her to the doctor, found out that she had eczema, and they wanted to put a steroid on her at 5 months old, which I thought was crazy. Like, who puts a steroid on a 5-month-old? I came home, looked in my pantry for something that I could do to just help in that moment, like in that exact moment, to relieve her from the whelps that she had on her body, and did some research on the computer and made a product based on what I had in my kitchen pantry. And that was the moment that I kind of really went full on into entrepreneurship, because I made a product to help my daughter, but I wasn't intending to sell it. I just was trying to fix a problem at that time, and then started making it, and it was working. And then I gave it to some friends to try, because, you know, we don't test on animals, so we test on humans. But gave it to some friends to try, and it worked. So I was like, okay, that's great. So then I was like making product for them, but again, nothing was clicking to turn it into a business. And then I was listening to the radio, and at the time, Michael Baisden had a radio show back in the day, and he would have Wellness Wednesdays. And on Wellness Wednesday, I called in, and he had a national syndicated show. So I'm listening to everybody else talk about their products, and I finally get my turn after waiting like an hour and 15 minutes. And I started talking about the things other people didn't talk about. I didn't want to be in direct competition with anyone else. So I started talking about the eczema products and what I did for my baby. And as I'm talking and sharing and I'm, you know, being passionate, my phone starts ringing while I'm on the air. And then I see the little button, because people are going to the website. So I'm getting orders literally while I'm on the phone from people all across the United States. Wow. And that is when I was really like pushed full on into entrepreneurship. And that was in 2007. And I've done some other entrepreneurial things before, but it wasn't like, honestly, that I took it seriously. And it wasn't until that moment that I took that particular entrepreneurial journey seriously, when orders started coming in from all over the country.
Wow. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
That must have been such a surreal feeling to have the whole country
It was
tune
awesome.
in and tap into what you created.
Yeah, it was, I mean, again, it's awesome because, you know, we were talking before we started about butterflies.
Yeah.
And in that moment, this is happening, so you're like still trying to keep your composure while you like want to jump up and down and scream, because again, it wasn't like that was the intention when I started making the products, was to have a business. But people are like, you know, sending orders, and they're like sharing very personal reasons why they're ordering, which was even like more profound. So now I'm like, wait a second, okay, I can still serve people while in my entrepreneurial journey, So like, oh, okay. So now it's like, let's tap into your gifts. So it's less skills and talents, which those are the things that you learn along the way, but the gifts, that's something that you're born with. Like that just this innate ability to go into something and it feels like it's always been a part of you. So that's when it kind of like, now it's like opening up all of this where I'm like, wait a second, I can help people by making a product with my hands, and then I can make a business from it. So like that's win-win-win, and I get to be home with my kids. So I technically left corporate America in, actually I changed dates. I started making product in 2006, January of 2006, and then a year later in 2007 I left corporate America, April of 2007.
Wow.
And haven't been back.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what did that business grow into? Was it just eczema cream, or was it more?
It was more.
More. Okay.
So it started off with just actually it was a bath tea. So I took herbs like chamomile and oatmeal. What else did I take? I took like a few other ingredients, like I said, that I had in my house. And then I put them inside of like a cheesecloth, because at the time I didn't have the proper supplies to make, the products that I ended up making. And so once I made that and it worked, then it had to convert to where I had to do a lot of research. And a lot of the products that I was using, I won't say any brand names, but a lot of the ingredients were not good. So I had to do like a lot of research in terms of like what products I can use, what ingredients go in. So there was a lot of research that went into that. And so once I started making it, a lot of people would comment about packaging, like putting it together and how pretty it was, because I was like, body care can be boring sometimes. So once I started making the bath, I started making body oils and soaps. I made cream, like a body butter that went on. There's bath milks and there's bath teas. And then I did bath salts, and then I started making candles. So once it was like this full-on product line, and then the way I packaged it, a lot of people would ask about packaging. So fast forward to about 2014. And I had to like let the business change a little during that time. And so that's how Burt Brewington was born. It was born because a lot of people kept asking, how are you getting press? Or how'd you get this magazine or this celebrity to buy this product from you? And a lot of people would ask. And so I was like, wait a second. Okay, a lot of people are asking. So, maybe I should take like some of the knowledge of what I did over here, and then I'll use it over here, because I had to switch up what I was doing business-wise, just because during that window when the separation, there's a lot that goes into that. But we'll just say one thing had to sit for a minute, but I still had to pay bills. So that's Burt Brewington comes in. And so now I'm helping people with their packaging, which is the colors. And so now that's brand identity, right? Like, what do you want people to know about your brand? And from that, it morphed into more services. But that's how Burt Brewington was technically born. People were asking about getting media, press, or packaging, how to pull that business together so that it looks more cohesive and professional. And so I took all of that I learned from making product and getting product in stores, and then turned that into another company.
Would you say it was a smooth transition?
Smooth in that I understand how important it is to pivot. I've been a caregiver to 4 different people at this point in my life that I was related to, that were adults, that weren't my children. And what that teaches you when you're a caregiver to a person, it's not something you signed up for. And it teaches you, yes, you still plan, and yes, you can still have like a blueprint of what you want to get done, but life is still going to be happening around you. And so sometimes things don't go the way that it's planned. So I learned very early on how to pivot. So even when it doesn't seem like it's an easy transition, I don't focus on that. I focus on what is working, and then what isn't working. Like you go back to the drawing board and you're like, okay, do I stop doing this? Do I do this? So technically, it was an easy transition because I was taking a lot of what I had done through the products, through making the actual products myself with my hand, creating the labels that I did. My mom would help out. She would design some of my labels, doing the research in terms of like what is required by law to go on any of the ingredients, how you have to store your products. Like I did a lot of research around it. So it wasn't like I just made something and stuck it in a bottle. Like I really poured myself into it. And so when I moved into the marketing side, that's what I went to school for. I went to school for communications. So it was easy going into it because it was still a love and I was still doing something I was excited about. It was just something a little different. So the hardest transition, I think, was finding time to still do both. Still make the product, which is very labor intensive. I do things in small batches, and still now build out this business on the other side with marketing, where the needs and the clients that were coming in had different needs as opposed to a candle or bath salts. So it was like trying to manage that time while still having a family. That was probably the hardest part.
Wow. So it sounds like you're someone who's very comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you seem to thrive in such situations.
That's
Now,
crazy.
I mean, just by listening to your feedback on, your trajectory up until now. Now, I do want to ask, were there any fears or doubts or maybe some insecurities that you had during this particular transition or concerning entrepreneurship in general?
Okay, so I know this is going to sound crazy, but my answer is no.
Wow.
So, but I always have to preface it. It's not to say that it's an arrogance, by no means, because again, remember earlier, you got to know and be able to pivot. Pivoting is less about the plan on the other side of the pivot. It's more like right now, if the train's coming through like it did. Pivoting is, do we keep talking and then yelling and knowing that it's not going to work, or do we wait for the train to go by? And then knowing while that train is going by in that moment, okay, it's not about where the train is going because who cares? It's like, okay, once the train is done, do we start over or do we pick up where we are? That's what pivoting is to me. It's focusing on the things that you can control in that moment, and the things that you can't, you don't worry about it. So the reason why I didn't and don't feel like I really operate in fear, which does, I think, pain a lot of people, and a lot of people struggle in that, and I totally get it, is I'm firstborn. So I'm the oldest of my two other siblings. And I joke, my sister and I joke, because my mom and dad had two girls before they finally had, my brother. And we always tease and say my dad has like 3 sons because my dad's an outdoorsman, he's a veteran, and so a lot of the stuff that you would typically, a father would do with his son, he did with us. So fishing, hunting, being outdoors, go-karts, ATVs, like we were in that space. And so when you get on a go-kart at like 8 and you're riding around, like you don't really think about fear, right? And then learning to shoot a bow and arrow at 10, and you've got you don't think about, so you get to a point where fear is crippling, and it'll keep you from, I think, testing yourself, right? And moving yourself outside of boundaries in a comfort zone. So the reason why I don't operate in fear or I sit in that space is because I already know I'm flawed. So fear comes from, I think, where people feel like they have to be perfect or they got to get something right. The reason why I don't is because I'm most likely going to fail at some point. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to it's not going to work out. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm okay with that. So there's no fear because I already know I'm probably going to mess up, or I'm going to not do something completely right, but that's okay. That's where I learn the most. Now the goal is to not keep making the same mistakes or keep repeating the what we call the path to failure. You grow from that, but I don't operate in it because I already know I'm flawed. I already know I'm not perfect and I don't have to be. So when I go into things, a portion of it is the way that I was raised. My parents supported me in everything. Like I would come to them with the craziest stuff and they'd be like, okay, fine, but you got to stick to it for a while. So I've done so many things there, and that just having that support also removes fear, right? Because I've got people behind me and people who support me and people who champion for me. And then I'm a doer. So I'm solutions oriented. There's a problem. Can we fix it? And if we can fix it, how do we go about doing it? So let's work on that. So that's the other part. It's like if I see there's a hole or a gap, I'm gonna go and work to like fill in that gap. If a person needs help, okay, what do you think's the problem? So I sit in that space and I always kind of go, okay, let's use your skills and talents for good. So if you're stuck in fear, you're never gonna get outside of that. You're gonna kind of always be in this box. And I didn't even know there was such a thing as when people go, I'm an out of the box thinker. I was like, oh, so there was a box? I didn't know. Okay. So I think for me, that's just it. It's like I'm going to always be that person where I'm just going to always push myself. So no one else has to be the driving force behind me. I'm going to push myself to the limits every single time. And you can't do that being fearful.
Wow. So what do you believe are other attributes that make a successful entrepreneur or just a successful human in general? I mean, it seems like one of them is, not being so consumed by fear and the fear of failure, the fear of embarrassment. What other attributes or qualities make up a successful entrepreneur?
That's a good question, Jay. I would say in the short version of that, I think that it's something that I think can apply, I would say for life, but it works in entrepreneurship. One is you got to stop caring what other people think. Like when you get to the point where you're so caught up in what other people think of you or how they perceive you, even if you did everything that they wanted you to do, it still may not be enough. So I say be a good human, right? Be a kind human. So to be good means you have to, again, break the rules because, society will tell you that you have to do this or this or this. Like I've had so many people to tell me, you should pick one thing to do. And I'm like, well, why? Why do I have to pick one thing? If you can only do one thing, that's okay. But I don't want to put myself in that box of just doing one thing. First of all, that's boring. But also because I don't grow from that. So I would say when I say I don't care what people think, it doesn't mean that people in my circle who know me shouldn't hold me accountable, right? Like I still have to be held accountable. But if somebody walked up to me right now and they're like, oh, I don't like your outfit, I don't like your hair, I think I'd be like, okay, it's great. Didn't ask, but okay. So I think that's number one, is to not care what people think, but to still work every day to be a good person, be a good human. Second is to not operate in fear. And people go, well, what's the quick way to get over that? Is again, know you're going to mess up, right? Know that you're probably at some point along the way to get to this point from here. It's not going to be an easy, smooth path. You might have to go on gravel for a while or walk uphill to come back downhill. No one said it was going to be easy, but if you really feel something is worth it, then you move towards it, not away from it. And that's what fear will do. It'll hinder you. I think the third one is that you should be able to have a real talk with yourself every day. And I don't mean you have to like talk to yourself, but kind of like every day I look at, instead of like a New Year's resolution or waiting for someone to go, hey, what are you giving up for Lent or whatever? And that's all fine. But it has to be daily resolution. You have to every single day go, was I a good person today? We almost always know. It's kind of like, when you do something and then somebody gives you a task and then you go do the task. And then you'll turn around and be like, oh God, I should have probably studied, or I should have given myself more time to prepare for it. You know if you did a good job or not. Okay, you know if you put the effort into it as an adult. Like even children know. You know when you've put effort into something. So at the end of the day, you should have this kind of resolve with yourself. Okay, so I wasn't my best today. That's okay. So tomorrow, it's a new day. So tomorrow I'm going to work to be a better version of myself tomorrow than I was today, right? And what that does again is it removes outsiders, because we don't really care what other people think. I'm going to work to be the best person that I can, and I want to focus on that every single day. And when you do that, you show up more authentically, which is my other thing. Show up authentic in everything that you do. When you like make yourself small or allow people to make yourself small, when you allow people to tell you you're not enough or you're too much, and those are things that people have told me. They've told me I'm too happy. And I'm like, well, that's crazy. What is that? How are you too happy? But I'm like, okay. So when someone goes, you're too happy, guess what I do? I turn the happy up 10,000 notches. So I think when you get in this place of, in a day-to-day, it is working to be the best version of yourself that you can be today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Yesterday's already gone. Tomorrow's not promised. Today. So today, what can Rada do today to make this world a better place than it was yesterday? And so by doing that, I put that in the DNA of my businesses. So every client that I work with has to give a community give back. They can't just take. They have to give back. And so that allows me to feel good about that part. But also with those attributes, those basics, be a good, kind human. Just be a good person. And again, it doesn't mean that you're going to say something where you stick your foot in your mouth or, you know, you make a comment about somebody and you'll realize, oh my God, like we've all done that. But I think it's, you weren't intentionally trying to make that person feel bad. So be a good person, live authentically, move forward, hold yourself accountable, and find the joy. Find the joy every single day, no matter how small it is. Find the joy in each day, and I think those would be my things that I would say. And I carry those in my business, in my life, with the people that I'm with. There's an intentionality in that space.
Well, thank you for sharing. That definitely sounds genuine, and I can tell just by your aura and just the feedback that I've heard from Ed and just the feedback that I've seen online. I can tell that you are definitely someone who lives up to that.
Will you guys put like those lights behind me when I say that? Those angelic lights and stuff?
I mean, might as well. But I definitely want to focus a little bit more or harp on Burt Brewington.
Okay.
You're a creative boutique styling agency. Mm-hmm. What makes your agency in particular unique? And please take this opportunity to talk about the services that you provide, because it's a whole array. I recorded 9.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see if I can remember the 9.
I can help you.
I would say, in its most simplest form, what makes us unique is that it's a lot of lived experiences. So when you come and sit, instead of it being like a lot of paperwork or forms, which I do have because it helps me to get information, I sit. I sit the same way you're sitting with me right now. I sit with each person and I ask for the backstory. Like, how'd you get here? Like, tell me about your business. And, you know, all the things that usually make people really proud to share. And so we take into consideration all of that. And then it's like, where do you want to go? What do you want to see happen? And so when we pull that in, not that other people don't do that, but instead of it for me forcing like my services or here's what we're going to do or this, I really sit in that space because you want people to feel like they're part of that process. Even if they don't know about marketing or public relations, you want people to feel like they're part of that. So one of the things that I always tell people is you get, even if I have other team or staff to help, you still get me. You still get the layers of what I'm presenting. So it's hands-on. It's like having a doctor. I speak in metaphors, analogies, and similes here. But it's like having a doctor and you go to this doctor for, say, a year. And you've shared and poured into this doctor and you feel like this person knows a lot of what's going on. And then you go back one day and then you get a different doctor. And then you have to start over. And then that doctor doesn't really know because they're trying to help you in that moment right then. So they don't know all the backstory. They can look at it and go, oh, you've had this happen and this happen, but they don't understand the story. They don't understand what you had to fight for to get there. So I don't pawn you off on someone else to where they're just doing the service. This is like a lifestyle here. And we want this to be something very much like the relationship that you have with someone that you feel very safe with, someone that you feel like you have a relationship with. And that's what we do. We build relationships. So yes, services come, but it's the relationships. So that's what I feel like is unique, that when you come, you become part of a family. And we really do work with you in whatever way we can, whether it's with your budget whether it's with the time commitment, whatever it is, we work with you in that moment. And as far as services go, okay, here we go. Can I name the services? So we do public relations, marketing, very broad. It's like beer. It's like 11 million types of beer out there, but it's beer, right? So marketing to me is like beer. Do you want like a ale? Do you want like I don't even know beer, so I don't even know why I picked that, but it's like beer. So marketing is very broad, but we can help in any aspect of marketing. Usually the marketing that I really gravitate towards is brand voice, brand identity, brand awareness, storytelling. It is authenticity, to make sure that when you have your business and how you describe your business and your brand, that when you show up, it matches. So have you ever played that card game where you flip it over and you got to find the other match? There's nothing like you flip over a fish and then there's the horse and then the next card's the goat. Well, you just want to match. You want to match when you're out and people see you, because you are representative of your brand, that you match. You match the language, you match the cohesiveness. And so we help with that. We help with crisis management, which falls under PR. We can do social media management. We can do copy and content. There's editing. I'm trying to think, did I get everything? I feel like I'm leaving stuff out. Communications management. Product placement and influencer marketing and management. Yes. And we do other stuff too, but you know, it feels so like, I don't know, like almost a little ego driven when you're like, oh, we do more, but we can. Like we meet you where you are. So.
And it's to my understanding that you're focused on the marginalized community?
Yes, so marginalized is so broad now. So marginalized could be anything from someone that is starting out, ageism, like someone that's 50 plus and starting their business. Things have changed for a lot of people, including social media or the way that people can access their community. So they come in at a learning curve. Like if you're not really strong in technology and computers, you're gonna fail at social media, right? Like hands down. So there's that group. I do typically work with what I call invisible communities. So invisible communities, that's a term, I'm not saying I came up with it, but it's a term that I use that reflects that you can be in one community. So I can be, a woman, or I can be, I was born in Durham, so I could be like a Durham or Raleigh native and still be in a broad community while still being part of a smaller subset of a community. So I typically like to work with people who are financially challenged, and that could be anyone, right? When a lot of people are wanting to start businesses, they don't have the funds, they don't know how to get the funds or the money, or it's a side business and then they're trying to make it, be their main business. So I work with people that are financially challenged. I work with people who come from the African American community, the Latino community. I work with those that are from the indigenous community, Native American, pretty much anyone who feels disenfranchised from the bigger population. And again, that is to help with messaging. That's to help with language. And it's also to help where they lack, and a lot of people don't have broad marketing skills or public relations skills, or the ability to overlap with things like taking pictures and then writing the copy that goes with the picture and then uploading the picture. Do you know what I mean? Like people can do one or two, or they'll try their hand at creating graphics and do what they can, but oftentimes they don't usually have marketing. And when I did research, a lot of marginalized communities lack that. And that's where I wanted to be there and to support them and to help them. And so you can't always charge thousands of dollars for that because the community can't afford that. So I try to make sure that I do pro bono work for nonprofits. I do help people who are trying to use this as a viable way to make money for their families. So I've worked with people at no cost. I've bartered with people, and then of course there's clientele and people that pay, and so it kind of balances out. So I just try to make sure that I can help anyone who's in need. I try not to say no, but sometimes you have to, and that's hard. That's a hard part.
And has the marginalized community always been your focus, or did you kind of grow into that over time?
I mean, honestly, I think that it just comes with the territory. Like, how do I show up as a woman who identifies as Black, African American, I have Native American roots as well. So how do you show up and not be a support factor for people who look like you and come from a group that you identify with? Like it to me would seem like a slap in the face, and it's very disrespectful, if you will. So I feel like I don't feel forced to do it, but I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like, it's a given, right? You help those that need help, but I wouldn't not help someone because they don't come from those groups. I just know that it can be difficult. I know what it's, I'll just lead with being a woman sitting in rooms where sometimes I'm the only woman. And when you sit there, when we talked earlier about fear can creep in and make you think you're not supposed to be in that room. But I never had that. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be here, obviously, because I've got the skills, or, I've got the ability to sit in this space and own it. So I can't come in here fearful because they're going to use that against me. So I got to sit in this space and I got to be like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. So I try to help people to know how to show up for themselves. And that's another thing, like when you go, what makes us different? Helping people to feel confident and good about showing up for themselves, for advocating for themselves. And that doesn't mean that you say no or turn down someone from another group. It's just to say you can show up more authentic in that space. And when we do that, then we can see each other for who we really are. So now I can help other people, and they don't have to look like me or be from my group because I'm able to show up for myself. I don't have to make myself small, or I have to come in and only use that as my identifier. I'm an amazing entrepreneur who just happens to be a woman who happens to be Black.
Wow.
And I'm proud of that.
Wow.
So
can you talk about a successful campaign that you've managed, or in order to help a client?
I feel like every client that I've ever helped is successful for me. Like there isn't one that stands out any more than the other because they all have something special to add. They all work really hard to get where they are in their businesses. So to like minimize it and go, hey, this particular client was like the most successful would be like a slap in the face to all the other people who worked hard, who paid me money or, sat with me in a space. And even if I did it pro bono, it doesn't matter that somehow or another they didn't equate in a scale of what's successful, right? So every single person I've ever worked with, whether they're a current client or not, I think to me makes me feel good. Like I feel like from a standpoint of they were all successful in their own way, right? Like we were able to, for the most part, accomplish what they needed or wanted. And sometimes it, they come in here and we end up over here. Sometimes it's straight, but I think for me, I try to pick clients that I would feel good about. Like I can go to bed at night, close my eyes and feel good about working with them. So to me, that's successful.
Well, a better question is, how do you measure success? I mean, I guess you've just answered it. I mean, I guess you measure success based off of the client themselves.
Well, I think, yes. And I think for me, it's also like, success for me is going to bed at night, feeling good about the work that I did, and knowing that there's still work to do. So like success isn't necessarily measured for me in like a certificate or a award, and those are nice. Those are nice, right? To be recognized by your peers or whatever. But success for me is knowing that today, Tuesday, the 29th of October, 2024, I did a good job for my clients. And I didn't have to compromise my beliefs. I didn't have to compromise my morals. I didn't have to step on somebody else to do what I'm doing. I didn't have to put somebody else down. I didn't have to compete with I'm not competing with anybody. Like if someone's like, oh, I'm competing with Rada, I'm like, well, have fun, because I'm not competing with anybody. There's room for all of us. So success for me is that I didn't feel like I had to like put somebody else down in order for me to succeed or to thrive or to sit in this chair. Like I didn't have to do any of that. I did a good job. Could I do better tomorrow? Yes, for sure. Am I going to try to do better tomorrow? Absolutely. But success for me is like knowing that I get to sit here in this space, even with you, and I get to like go and do something new or different and here's another pivot. And do it doing something that I love. Like, that's successful to me. I'm literally doing something that I love every single day, because there's so many people who don't get that. They don't get to have that. So that's successful to me. Yeah, that I get to do what I love.
And that's always been success to you? Or did you have to transition into that?
I mean,
did the entrepreneurship side or entrepreneur side of you bring that out?
I've always been, I've had a lot of family members when I was younger. They would say things like, if anybody's going to do it, Rada's going to do it. Or if something happens, they'll like, I knew Rada would do that, or I knew she would say that, or whatever. It's like, I think part of it is under my coping mechanism. Humor is my way of coping with things. So like anything that's kind of bad that's happened, or what we say is traumatic, I would put humor behind it, because I love to laugh, and that's healing, right? So success, I would imagine, probably looked different for me when I was younger. I couldn't really give you an example. I still feel like I was still closer to who I am today, which is, I remember I won a track meet, and you get the ribbon and everything. And this was like elementary school. And I was like, okay, that's great. So where are the cookies? So it was kind of like, it was good, but I didn't need the award to know that I did a good job. Like, I didn't need the award to know that I ran my hardest. And even if I didn't place, it wouldn't have made me feel bad, because I still, like, I pushed myself, and I always so I push myself whether I get a ribbon or not. I push myself whether it's a certificate or not. I push myself whether someone sees it or not.
So success is internal.
Yes, absolutely. So success for me has never been about someone else coming to me and going, hey, you did a good job. But that adds to it. It is essentially the cherry on top. Like, I'm going to always get and go towards the cake with the icing. And then outside accolades are the cherry on top. But I'm going to always have the cake. And that's up to me.
Wow.
So.
It's like almost a full circle to your servitude answer. Because you were talking about how people deem things as worthy of doing based off of likes, shares, outside validation. And here we are, minutes into the interview, and you're essentially saying the same thing. So it seems to be like the bedrock of really what you stand for.
And see, that's what you did. Like, you were able to even help that, because I'd have been like, huh. So yeah, I mean, and I think that's part of where authenticity shows up. Like, if I were pretending, the interview can still be all over the place, even if I'm being authentic. But I feel like it was able to come back full circle, because that's part of where, when we're our most authentic selves, the vulnerability is to say, I have to be honest and truthful, because if I don't, how can you remember all that stuff? How do you remember the pretend version of yourself? And it's like, I don't have time for that, right? As these like silver strands are coming in, it's supposed to be wisdom, right? So wisdom means that you've been through some things in order to be able to look at it with a different perspective on the other side. And it's not for you always, it's someone else. Like, hey, I've been there, I totally get it, kind of thing. So to go full circle and for it to still match, remember the cards, and you flip it over, like, that's pretty awesome, again, which adds to why I can sit in this space and not have to be in fear or competition, because I'm just working to be the best version of myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
No, absolutely. I noticed that. I just wanted to call that out.
Thank you.
But I also want to make sure that I ask this. What is your approach to crisis management and reputation rehabilitation?
So first and foremost, as a publicist, Rule 101 through 159 is stop talking. It's like, crisis management is always about, you can't fix it while you're in the middle of it. Like, so most of the time when you think about some scandals that have happened, and there's a couple that are going on right now, that typically, for whatever reason, we're really big right now in like sex trafficking. Like, that's a big topic, right? Yeah. So typically when it comes to crisis PR, crisis management, even if you don't have a publicist, is if something is out there on social media, or someone says something, or something comes out about you, right, that's not painted in a positive way, is to stop talking. Don't address it. Don't respond to it. Don't make your statement until you can come together as a team. Because what you have to do is you got to make sure, again, if you've ever seen Drumline, it's one band, one sound, right? So if you've got this issue is happening, but everybody on your team is saying something different, that's only adding fuel to the fire, right? You're literally pouring gas on a situation. If you come out and your first response is, well, I didn't do it, or that's wrong, or so-and-so's a liar, and I've got receipts, and now so now you're, again, more fuel to the fire. So it's very much like if you've ever, unfortunately, been in a situation where you've seen EMS or first responders come. If you've ever noticed that a lot of times with first responders, they're not screaming all over the place. Like if you think about it, the ambulance pulls up, and then the driver gets out, and then he sees the situation, he starts screaming, and he just like runs all over the place. Like, you're not going to feel pretty confident that he's going to be able to take care of you, because he's like all over the place, right? And you probably are not going to want to get in the ambulance, because now you're like, oh my God, like, what is he doing over there, right? He's like screaming and hollering and he's like frantic. So now that energy feeds. Like, so now you're nervous, right? So when you think about crisis PR, it really is to be what's a calm to the chaos. So once you stop talking, then we got to come together and we got to figure out what is the truth of this statement and what is not, right? Then we have to come up with, is an apology due? Do we need to address allegations? Is there an attorney? Like, there's so many moving parts, but you've got to get your team together. Once your whole team comes together, then it becomes, who's the spokesperson? Who in this situation needs to say something or address it? So, like, for instance, your big corporations, we'll just call light companies, right? Or a bank. If something happens that's a scandal, you'll notice that their person that comes out is a spokesperson for that brand. And that person is able to answer questions, make a statement, whatever they have to do on behalf of everybody that's with the, so I go, who's behind them, which is the brand. So crisis management is less about picking through all the pieces of what someone said or didn't say. It's about reputation and brand identity. And sometimes in that moment, you can't always save it. So what you want to do is so there's two parts. One is to move it. Move it means, let's get people talking about something else, okay? And the other is we address it and then we move forward. So depending upon how bad it is, either we're going to try to like move the conversation, shift it to something else, or we need to like address it head on, which then becomes part of things like apology tours. So you've seen people, right? You already know, right? They're out apologizing. But if it's genuine, and it doesn't, so, as publicists, sometimes we do write those. I'm usually a fan of you write it in your words, right? Like if I were advising you, I would say, Jay, you write it in your words. I'm going to look over it and make sure you're not adding more fuel to the fire, that you said some inflammatory word, or where you'll put the statement out and people are going to go, oh, here he comes with this crap, right? So we still want to stay authentic. And so a lot of it is after the teams come together, then we got to go head on. So the more time that goes by that you don't address it, the more people assume you're guilty. And that's just a standard. We'll just use the word entanglement. When that came out, they kept saying no. And then it comes out that it was. And so then people lose trust in that person. No matter how popular, no how amazing that person can be, when people feel like you've lied to them, especially people that have supported you, it's hard to earn that trust. It can be done, but it's hard. So the goal is almost always in crisis management is to keep the trust of the people who support you. And by doing that, sometimes you just got to come clean. And so you can't do that if you're all over the place rattling and going off on people and cussing people out and going in people's DMs. Like now that's more work that has to be done. And crisis management is not cheap. It's like paying an attorney. It's not cheap. So the goal is to keep the money in your pocket and not be expensive. So I always tell all of my clients know it. And depending upon who they are and what they do, how public facing they are, I literally always say it's a difference of, I'll use words like, okay, so if something happens, just stop talking. Versus some of my clients, I go, I need you to just shut up. Like, you can't even say stop talking. Just don't say another word. Close your eyes and your mouth, right? Nothing. And so that's the best, like, crisis management. And then you have to go, it sounds like a office, but you kind of have to then break it down. Like, what is the end goal? And then work towards that. And then just, now you got to reverse the media, right? Like, we got to give it some time. You do some stuff in the community, or if you've wronged somebody, you try to write it. It's not always a check, but you know what I mean? Like, they'll send you out. So figuring out what those steps are is an internal thing that usually works with everybody chiming in. And then after that, because there's a window, then we work towards going back to getting you good press. But you most likely are going to have to address it even with other media outlets, or, you know, people are going to ask for a while. Again, there's certain scandals, Neverland, that still to this day people have questions about, and you don't want that to be your legacy. So crisis management is to help make sure your legacy is not tarnished or tainted, and that people can still trust you or your brand. And that's when you have a good publicist, that's what they're able to do.
First of all, thank you for your answer, and I believe everything that you're saying. I have a question, though.
Mm-hmm.
You said there was 2 criteria to crisis management. You said move it, and what was the other one?
It's usually either, like, they say shift or move.
Mm-hmm.
So shift or move means that because people now, and this is not saying all people or even a majority, but social media has made a lot of people's attention span to be very short now. Because, you know, we have reels, stories are only so many seconds. People aren't reading like they used to. They're not digging down into the layers. Literally, you'll just get on Facebook or Instagram and you just swipe. You just swipe, like, swipe, like, swipe. You very rarely go in and comment on things. And if you do, nowadays it's emojis. Emojis, like, you don't even put words anymore. And so when you are thinking about crisis management, sometimes it is basically not this is what it's called at all, but it's kind of like the cat theory, where you dangle the yarn ball in front of the cat. So the cat could be doing something and you just dangle it and now the cat's there. And then a few minutes later you dangle it and the cat goes over there. And then you can do it and the cat, like, it's literally just moving and shifting people's focus to something else.
But wouldn't the fire still be burning?
Oh, for sure. But
so, like, how is that?
How's that beneficial or good?
Benefiting like, if this building was on fire,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not even going to go through that. But you get
I get what you're saying. So it's like, it doesn't work for everything. So everybody can't do that. So it's kind of like, how about this? If to shift doesn't mean you're not addressing the bigger elephant that's in the room, but it could be something as simple as you've just donated, prior to this incident, you had donated $500,000 to a nonprofit. So the shift is, we want to make sure that people know you are still a good person even though this happened. So
in the midst of a fire.
Yes. Because here's the thing. We'll use actual fire.
But I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's just like, wouldn't someone or the public obviously know that that's a deterrent?
So you have to be I'm telling you, it is very strategic. Because what you're trying to do, a lot of times you can make a statement on this side while you're doing that. So a statement is to say, while we're digging through this accusation, or while we're looking a little bit further into this accusation to figure out the pieces and parts of where's this coming from, why is this happening in this moment, you know, especially when you can say you did not do the things you're being accused of, you still have to work towards repairing your image, because there's a lot of people that didn't do the things they were accused of, and that is a hit towards your public perception, right? So you still have to actively work towards making sure people know the good that you've done, even while you're trying to figure out where's this coming from. Most of the time, I would say for a lot of celebrities, it'll be things like a celebrity couple's married,
mm-hmm.
and then there'll be a child outside of the marriage. And so that was been denied, or maybe it was speculated and they don't know, because sure, someone can say that, you know, this child is yours, but usually it's what DNA tests are for. So while the focus is on the infidelity, what's the even bigger issue is the child even this person's? So sometimes a story that really shouldn't even be a story gets made into a story. Because for all we know, the couple that's married may be full aware of the infidelity, and they're fully aware there's a possibility of a child. But public perception is, we got to know too. So that's where that comes from, where you are still figuring things out. So you're not addressing it, but you can't go full on in a statement saying this isn't my child, or, I don't know what you're talking about, when clearly something happened and that has to be addressed. But that begs the question of, is that anybody's business, right? And so how much of that situation do we make people's business? So you almost have to kind of downplay it, and that's where that comes from. So it's like over here, yeah, he's doing this, or he's got the album coming out, or better yet, what's happening in their family, they are aware. So that's a statement we can make. They are very well aware of what's going on. And at this point, should the family decide to move forward with a statement or to disclose what's going on, we'll do so. But in the meantime, we're still waiting and trying to figure things out. And then you kind of go over here. So it's the yarn ball. Hey, look over here. But you can't not acknowledge it, and you certainly don't want to. I always tell my clients, please don't lie to people. I know it's hard, and it can hurt, and it can cost you money. I mean, it can cost you partnerships, but don't lie to people, because people feel hurt. They feel betrayed. So especially if you're a likable brand, so don't lie to people. And people still do it. Even when you're told not to, people still do it. So I would say I'm not a big fan of dangling, but sometimes you do have to find another story to pull people into, to get behind while you're figuring things out. But I'm a fan of, let's just say that. Let's just say, hey, we don't know what's going on right now. We don't really know. We're trying to figure things out. When we do, we'll let you guys know. You're our family. We want y'all to know. But right now, we don't even know. And so there's a way to do it so it still fits with your language. And everybody can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can't say that and then not have the problems. But that's what you do. You have that. And so it's not that you're not addressing it, but it's kind of like, I'm going to use this. It's kind of like if you've ever been in a home or a room and people were arguing, like a couple. Doesn't matter if it was your parents. It could be friends. Even you, and you're arguing and other people around you are witnessing it. And you know how people kind of tense up, or they're just like, oh God, they're arguing. And then like 22 minutes later, y'all are like cuddled up and everything because it was no big deal for you, right? So you guys are fine, but everybody else that witnessed it doesn't really know. So now they're all like making up their version of what's going on. Oh my God, they're going to get a divorce. Geez, did you see how that went? Like, he was like screaming at her and blah, blah, blah. And then you guys are fine, but no one's remembering that you're fine. They're all remembering what they saw, the interaction. So that's how PR works, to help tell the story in the way that it was actually going on, but from inside out, which is, hey, they do that all the time. That's just how they are. They're just loud, right? Like they do that all the time. They're like theatrics. But that's like us talking. But the PR side of it would be, couples argue all the time, right? They argue all the time. As a matter of fact, have you not, like, when's the last argument? And it doesn't have to be a couple, your sister, right? A sibling. It could be anybody. Until you've met someone that's never argued. And arguing doesn't mean yelling. Arguing is, we don't agree, and we're being very verbal in that disagreement. So there's like this, right? You're saying anything, okay, I don't agree with you. Okay, boom, boom. Everybody's argued before, right? Have you ever felt something so passionate that in that moment, it didn't matter who was in the room, you had to get that point out? Whether you had to leave a bad job, or maybe the server in the restaurant was really bad to you, right? And so it must be known, right? And you're like, yeah, right. That's all they were doing.
Wow. Thank you so much for breaking that down.
You're welcome.
No, seriously. And it makes sense.
Right.
And I see why certain celebrities and certain companies take that route.
Right. Having a publicist is great because it really helps you to reframe and make sure that my job is not, it is PR, and it's to get you publicity and media, but it's really to make sure you are authentic in the brand and your businesses and how you show up in the world. Because the minute people whiff out fake, the minute people whiff out, oh, he's acting or pretending to be something, it's like game over. It's game over. And it's so hard to build that trust up. So come in your quirkiness and whatever, and let people get to know you and your true, authentic self. And you don't have to share everything with the world, but the parts that you do, let that be authentic. Then when something does happen, your people stand behind you. Even if you failed or messed up, they'll still stand behind you because they go, well, that's not all of who he is. Some things are off limits and some things I don't, like, I'm like absolute, like I'm talking about, no, I'm not covering that up. But for the most part, we all have that happen. So yeah, that's just pretty much what it is.
Rather have society judge you for the truth versus you coming back from a lie.
That's it, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Rada, it's truly been a pleasure. I truly enjoyed our conversation, getting to know you, and understanding your journey and why you chose entrepreneurship, why servitude is so important to you. I wish the best and the much success to Burt and Brewington, and I hope you continue to impact your community, the world, I mean, as you grow and as you blossom. But I just want to leave this opportunity for you to say any lasting words about your brand or anything that you want to leave the audience with.
I'll just say I am constantly evolving and growing. And we didn't get to talk about it today, which is good because I wanted this to be something I could use to share about what I do, because I don't always toot my own horn or share. Honestly, a lot of my friends don't even know what I do per se.
Wow.
So it was a nice, I think, welcome for me, but I would like to share that I am venturing and adding to my entrepreneurial plate by starting a magazine, and it's called 1865 Magazine, and you can find that on all the social media platforms, but Facebook and Instagram, we're trying to be a little heavy there, and you can always go to the website, but that's probably one of my biggest endeavors, is pushing me outside of all of my comfort zones, forcing me into spaces and places I have not been in, and I'm very excited about it. And so by saying it out loud, where it's being recorded and can be shared over and over, is it forces accountability for me. So I just wanted to share that I'm going to try something new and do this magazine. And so thank you for that and for allowing me to share and to feel take a little bit of the weight off of me, because it's hard to talk about myself. So I can talk about the things I do, and I can talk about what I've learned, because I want to share that with people. So I appreciate that you did an amazing job of making me feel comfortable, and I have absolutely enjoyed it, and appreciate you inviting me to be a part of Jay Speaks. So
thank you so much, Rada. Thank you so much.
Thank you.